Heyo. Thanks for tuning into the Delta. My name is Chris. Today we're going to be discussing some of the more recent news that's been going in Formula One. We'll call this a hot lap segment, and the goal of it is to periodically put a video together of the recent headline worthy news that occurs in Formula One. Not exact timetable of how many videos we will be doing a week or so. It's all dependent on how hectic Formula One is. If it's a super crazy weekend, Saturday through Tuesday, we might put one out Tuesday, and it gets crazy again on Wednesday and Thursday, so we'll put another one out on Friday. If it's a slower week, maybe I'll put something together, for a Saturday. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, and let's get right into it. I think the biggest news we need to discuss is the Spanish GP and how it's moving to Madrid starting in 2026. The contract will last till about 2035. We could take a look at the specs of the track right now, and there'll be 20 turns at a length of 4.57 kilometers, with the projected qualifying lap time of 1 minute and 32 seconds. There will be some street aspects and non-street sections, and it's going to be a pretty big venue. Starting out is going to hold about 110,000 people per day, with aspirations of growing to 140,000 people. So that will make it probably one of the largest venues on the calendar that year. Looking around and looking at the fan base's enthusiasm, I would say it's lacking. I think a lot of people are just tired of the street circuits, and that's fair because street circuits tend to be won in qualifying. So we'll see. I'll say wait and see. One of the things I kind of notice when things come out, whether it's news or a track or, I don't know, ticket prices, stewards, the list goes on and on. The fandom comes out with this nothing but moaning and complaining before we even get the full story or understand what's going to happen. Or, I mean, we're what, 2024? Track doesn't come out until 2026, and we're already poo-pooing it because it's a street track. Well, 2026 is when the new regulations come out. Who knows how these new cars are going to behave on a street track? So again, I just think we should just sit there, hold tight. I think we'll be just fine, given that it's 2 years away. As long as it doesn't rip the underside of Carlos Sainz like it did in Vegas, I think we'll be all right, because a street race can't be any more boring than Verstappen just winning 19 races by 20-plus seconds. Another interesting component of this track is that they are very, very headstrong about being net zero carbon. A brief little history about me. I did go to college there at Penn State, and I was in the environmental field. Long story short, it wasn't exactly for me, but I did learn a lot while I was there. But what I found out was what you can define net zero in so many ways. In the environmental field, you can manipulate stats to tell whatever story you want to tell. If you hate oil and gas, then you will find all the stats, rightfully so, that oil and gas is horrible. If you don't like EV vehicles, well, then you know what? There's plenty of stats saying that EV vehicles are horrible and just as bad as a gas vehicle. You can tell whatever story you want. So I'm very skeptical when I hear terms like net zero carbon commitment, because what is net zero? Are you just trying to offset the amount of fuel these cars use over a weekend? And what does that mean? Does that mean you're going to plant 500 trees? Is that what you're trying to, or are you talking about all the fuel you'll use in the logistics of things? Like it's not cheap, and it doesn't cost anything to send a car from, let's say, Bahrain to Spain, and then Spain to USA, and USA to Mexico. Like, we're using fuel there, we're filling planes up there, we're taking ships and boats across oceans there. That all takes. So are we trying to achieve net zero carbon efficiency for that stuff as well? So I love the fact that they're environmentally friendly. I have a really soft spot for the environment myself, so I love hearing that, but I'm also very skeptical because it's really easy to say we're going to go net zero by planting 500 trees, but at the end of the day, those batteries that operate some of the tools in your garage required a lot of carbon and fossil fuels to make that battery. Furthermore, The government officials of Spain are obviously excited that this F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali, I hope I pronounced his name properly, he's excited. FIA president Mohammed Ben Sulayem, they're obviously their job's to talk it up and get people super excited. So that's the Spanish GP that's going to in 2026. Moving to Madrid. Let me know how you feel about it. I'll I'll hold back on judgment. I got 2 years to think about it. There's my doggo. He's always going to pop up from time to time. In other news, AlphaTauri is changing their name. Formerly known as Toro Rosso back in 2006, they changed their name to AlphaTauri in 2020. Only held water for 4 short years. It's the sister outfit of Red Bull, and it's a mouthful of a name. We'll go with Visa Cash App Red Bull Formula One Team. That's what they went with. it's not good, and the fans across the Twitterverse agree. No one is going to call it by this name. No one is going to sit there and support this team by its full name outside of just being like a joke. Yes, the Visa Cash App Red RB Formula One team had an excellent race. No one's going to say that. So they've already tried to change it to a common name just known as RB, which I'm sure won't be confusing at all when you're talking about RB and then also maybe Red Bull, the flagship outfit. So it is what it is. You got to make your money somehow. I hate the fact that sponsors get that involved. We don't have that problem so much in America. You have the Boston Celtics. Who are the Boston Celtics? They are the Boston Celtics. They're not the Samsung Boston Celtics or Boston Celtics T-Mobile. They're Boston Celtics. The Pittsburgh Steelers or Miami Dolphins or New York Yankees. Yes, they are starting to get into their sponsorship a little bit by putting like a decal on a jersey or something like that. But I feel that we are such a far cry away from start changing our professional sports teams' names to sponsorship names. But continuing racing for them will be Yuki Tsunoda, who's entering his 4th year, and fan favorite Danny Ricciardo. He'll be there as well. It's going to be super interesting seeing how they do because I would assume they're going to try to place better in the Constructors' Cup or Constructors' Championship, better than 8th where they finished last year. Like I said, no one likes the name, and I personally hate sponsorships getting in the way of it. I understand it's a pivotal role in Formula One. There's too much stuff and too many expenses that go on traveling the world with multi-million-dollar cars that with drivers that cost millions of dollars to pay, so on and so forth. It's an expensive sport, expensive logistics, expensive research and development. You need sponsorship. But on the flip side, you also got teams like Ferrari and Red Bull, Mercedes, McLaren. They're not attaching anything to their names. We're not talking about McLaren Emirates United Racing Team yet, but we're going to head that way if this continues. So that tells me right now that either if you're a big name like Ferrari, you have the funds to take care of a team, but if you have to start adding these sponsorship names to your racing team, maybe you shouldn't be having a racing team if it's costing that much money. Like I said, you compare all these brand names to these teams, like I said, Ferrari, and then you put Visa Cash App RB Formula One team. Sounds like one of these teams is struggling to find the finances they need to stay afloat. But that's neither here nor there. It's their prerogative. It's their business. I just don't like it. And we have a team like Audi that is like jumping through hoops trying to get into Formula One. And I don't see them doing what, Visa Cash App RB Formula One team is doing. We'll see where it goes. Like I said, I might end up eating crow here, saying that Ferrari will never change their name, but I will probably jump ship out of the Ferrari fan base or even the F1 fan base if I ever hear the term Charles Leclerc crosses the finish line in the Ferrari T-Mobile Samsung racing car. It's just not gonna work. It's not gonna work. They need to find a better way to put out their brand and find their money. And we're talking about very, very rich individuals with very, very smart minds. I'm sure they can figure something out. But talking about Ferrari and Charles Leclerc for that matter, someone got a contract extension. And it's super exciting. Ferrari and Charles Leclerc have agreed to extend past 2024. No timetable. That's really what's the weirdest thing about the news. I think everyone was expecting Charles Leclerc to resign. He's a staple to the team. He has a team principal that seems to know what he's doing. He loves Ferrari. Ferrari loves him. Fred Vasseur loves Charles. Things are going to go well. So it is kind of interesting saying that they didn't say, "Oh, we got him until 2029. We got him until 2028, or we only have him until 2026." And I think that might be where they're leaving it up in the air, where they didn't say how long they wanted to sign him for. Like somewhere in the contract, Ferrari or Charles will be able to jettison from one another when 2026 happens. Because again, that's when the new regulations come out. And if Ferrari puts out a bad car, maybe Charles is like, "Look, I love you, but I'm trying to win a world championship here, and you're not putting out a good car. New regulations came, and there's an opportunity for me to race for Mercedes. Let me go. I'm going to go. I want to win something. Mercedes has a good car. That's what I wanted." But obviously, Leclerc talked about his excitement over this. He says that there's history there. He remembers being a little child and seeing all the things when in Monaco and watching the races and loving the red cars that raced. Obviously, Fred Vasseur agrees with all this and saying, Ferrari and Charles Leclerc have a great bond and it's a huge family and it's all nice, warm, and everything. Everything feels good when you're signing for a ton of money, but when you start losing races, things are going to change, and we'll see how that unfolds over the next couple years. I will say with my little tidbit, I am wrong side. I am a Sainz fan, and that makes me a little sad that they signed Charles to an extension like this. That makes me think that Carlos Sainz will never get his opportunity at a world championship or being a number one driver, at least with Ferrari. Now, I'm a Ferrari fan. I'm a Carlos Sainz fan. I want Carlos Sainz to win with Ferrari. But if Ferrari put all their chips on Charles Leclerc, then Sainz will probably never get his opportunity there. With Audi trying to find their way in, I can see Carlos Sainz not re-signing when his contract is up. I can't remember exactly. It's either this year or the end of this year or the end of next year. But nonetheless, if Carlos Sainz leaves Ferrari, I'll be very, very sad. He is one of the reasons I love to watch on Sundays. So it is what it is. But Charles wasn't the only one that got a contract extension recently, as of I believe yesterday, the 26th. Today I'm recording on the 27th, late night. So the 26th, Lando Norris also got his extension with McLaren. To give a little insight on Norris's success with McLaren, he's had 6 second place finishes in 2023, and that didn't even dawn on me. I was like, yeah, he's an excellent race car driver. And when I was doing a little bit of research on Orlando here, like, damn, he finished second. That's pretty damn good, right? And that resulted in him getting a 6th place finish in the Drivers' Championship. So he's not bad. Still chasing that elusive win, but he's trying to get. But they're trying. But McLaren is clearly on board with Lando Norris, going above and beyond. They believe in him, and Norris feels like McLaren's the team. That's how you come up with a good contract. But again, much like Leclerc's contract, it didn't seem like, at least I couldn't find anything about how long his contract was signed for. Again, with the 2026 regulations, who knows? I think a lot of drivers might be the ones pushing this, saying like, look, if you can't put out a good car, I got to move on. I need to go to a team with my talent. With my talents, I need to go to a team that has a good car. And I think maybe that's where this is leading. So when at the end of this season, with other extensions and contracts thing going on, it's going to be a huge shuffle potentially this coming off season. I think that's going to be in a lot of drivers' contracts, especially the ones that are good, like your Lewis Hamiltons, George Russells, Verstappen's. Like, these are the guys that are going to sit there and be like, I'm not going to sit in a crummy car just because you have me under contract. So, and these guys are so talented they can do that. Like Leclerc and Lando can look at Ferrari and McLaren and say, "Look, I'm a good race car driver, and either you put out or I walk out. And if you don't re-sign me or extend me, I promise you, Red Bull would love for me to take Checo's spot, or Aston Martin wants to be competitive or more competitive. I'm sure they would love to have Lando Norris, right? And then Byron has to sit there and say, well, we don't like the idea that we might lose you later or earlier than we want, but we want you now because we could win now. That's where McLaren is. They're a win now team, in my opinion. Especially because they also have their number 2, Piastri, who seems to be promising. And I think Norris and Piastri can work very well together. So, yeah, if McLaren gets their car in tip-top shape, I believe they're a team that is going to be competing for a championship the next few years. Same team, same drivers, hopefully, same principle. If everything goes well and they stay competitive, like, I just believe in cohesiveness. The same thing with the whole Ferrari thing. Like, I believe a team gets better when you're not making a ton of changes. You're constantly changing principles and engineers and your number 2 driver. And then, you ran out of a contract with your number 1 driver. And then we're going to change this car and give that car these parts to the number 2. It's just, it doesn't work. There's no cohesion. At least that's how it works in team sports like football and basketball. Like, you can bring in all the stars and all the bells and whistles you want, but if you're constantly taking out key aspects of your team, then you're just always going to be middle of the road until you can find that cohesion. And last thing to talk about is an honorable mention. An honorable mention will be a story, something short, something sweet, that doesn't get maybe as much hype and doesn't make the mainstream. And this week we'll be talking about Haas and how they decided, or how they've confirmed to release the date that they will break their cover, which will be February 11th at Silverstone, and that's just 10 days prior to the Bahrain testing. Please forgive me. I think his name is Ayo Komatsu. I will probably butcher that name all season long. He's the new team principal. He took over the job for Gunther Steiner. But he stated that the 2024 car is a clear step, but whether it's good enough against the competition to start off with, I don't think so, because we started so late. That has something to do with the fact that in Austin, they decided to make some upgrade changes, and it didn't warrant any results. So they spent all that money and time developing a car for last year. They lost that time to develop a car this year. I think Komatsu is just being honest. He's just saying, look, I believe in this team, I believe in the drivers, or so on and so forth, but we don't know what we have until we have a car. And unfortunately, we don't even know what car we have. So I can't make any driver changes. I can't make any engineer changes. I can't discuss any different strategies until we know what car we have. And since we're behind the 8 ball on the car design, I just have a feeling when we go out to Bahrain to test, we're going to find out we're not very good. So Komatsu seems motivated, and I kind of like Haas somewhere deep in my heart. There's something about him I like. But for them to be competitive, I just don't see. It's going to be a multi-year journey. It's going to be a multi-year journey before we can even talk about them, moving up in the constructors, in my opinion. I'll just take a hot take right now. I'll say that the Haas probably at best finishes at 9th. At most likely finishes 10th next. I think Williams will overpass them with ease. I think even Stake and what are they called? See, this is going to be the problem. You have to look up their name. RB. We got to go with the RB. RB will surpass them. Haas is going to be left behind. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. This was the Hot Lap segment, a quick overview of the recent Formula One news. I will put the links in the description because I just did an overview I might have missed something even, but the links to all the articles go directly to the Formula One website, and you can read them for yourselves and get a deeper look if you so want to. But yeah, what are your thoughts on any of these topics? Do you think RB is a good name? Are you excited about the Madrid circuit coming in 2026? Was the Leclerc extension and Lando extension good move for either party, given that we don't know when they're going to be need to re-sign or for how long their contract's going to be? Also, where do you think Haas will place in the Constructors' Cup this upcoming season? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing. Your support will be the thing that drives me to want to create more content and do better. Um, Also in the description, I just set up the Twitter page for the Delta. So if you could click that and give me a follow on Twitter, formerly or X, formerly known as Twitter now, that would be greatly appreciated. And then that way I can share news and share when videos get posted. Maybe give an opinion or two if you so much care. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Stay safe out there and have fun. See ya. Bye.